Hey everybody, we've got a special bonus episode for you today. At Black Hat this year, I was invited to join the crew from the Beers with Talos podcast at a special live recording of their show. We had a packed house and a great crowd, and so we're excited to share that recording with you right here. Enjoy.
This is Beers with Talos. Thrusts, beers, and malts overdose.
Episode 35, and we did it live at Black Hat, August 8th, 2018. Listen, it starts off slow, we had some iPad issues, the whole show keeps getting better. We're joined by Neil Jenkins from the Cyber Threat Alliance and our special guest, Dave Bittner from CyberWire. Here's the whole thing.
Live at Black Hat.
Is it?
It is. It is. We're all here. We're all here today.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
God, we got applause and everything. Like, fancy.
Yeah. Actually, we're not all here, though.
Oh.
We are definitely missing somebody.
Someone's got a writer. We got to do this one thing.
We have
just
requirements.
His contract says that he must enter in a certain way.
Where did that file go, though?
He needs a bowl of brown M&Ms.
He needs a bowl. Were they brown M&Ms?
Are we still doing the brown ones? Right.
Well, I really wish this was working and I could bring his music up. Hold on.
iPads are hard.
I'm glad
iPads are very hard.
I mean, the kids make it look easy, but the reality is there's a whole button and a screen. It's super complex.
This is going well so far.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Nigel Houghton, our LFC fan. Come on in, buddy. Woo! You start.
I don't know where it went.
Mitch doesn't know how to iPad, my friend.
What?
You know, the irony is that you walked in here The irony is you walked in here alone.
I know.
That is.
I never walk alone, though.
Never walk alone, though.
Come on up, join us.
You right?
Yep.
Careful on that one. So we do want to thank everybody for coming out today. We know that there's 1,000,001 things that you can do at Black Hat.
But nothing you'd rather do.
Well, that's fair. That's fair. And we want to thank you for spending your afternoon with us. We want to start off by hitting some of the topics that we have that we just got from the audience.
Well, I think first thing we need to do is examine the audience.
Why are we deviating? Yeah.
Yeah, because when you do a live podcast, normally, just to let you guys know, we're not even together.
No.
We are all, like, I'm at the office.
Yeah.
He's at his house in
Florida.
In Tampa, Florida. I'm in Fulton, Maryland. You're in some made-up state called Delaware.
Yeah, I make it up.
He's in Virginia, and you're in the Austin. Are you in the Austin office?
Yeah.
In the Austin office. So two of us actually go to work to do our work.
Why would you do that?
You know
ridiculous.
what? It's because that's where all the smart people are.
Oh, man.
So, but when you do a live podcast, you guys are part of it. You guys are going to be in the recording. So I got a couple of questions. First, who here has actually heard a recording of one of our podcasts?
Really?
Several. Fantastic.
Okay, that's actually better than I would have guessed.
Okay.
That's better than I would have guessed. Who is here for serious discussion about security topics?
Good.
Oh,
That's better.
Fantastic.
Yeah, right. We're good.
We will get Orion on that one.
Core audience.
Who's here for alcohol and screwing around?
So this is most people's second day in Vegas, right?
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
Flew in.
I said most, you hardcore guy. So who here is ready to be a little silly, have some fun?
There we go.
Who's
Literally no one's hands.
Holy shit. You guys have a bunch of beer in front of you.
That's the fun corner.
I told you we should have gotten the 3 drink minimum. So, all right. Well, we will do topics. So for those of you who haven't listened to the podcast,
Not that one.
Nope.
Oh,
we should probably start the way we always start.
Well, let's just go around the table.
All right, around the table.
And actually, we don't even have to random sort of spreadsheet this time because I actually have you in some semblance of order.
We are a sorted list.
And you seem to like to talk right now, so let's start with you.
I'm just trying to save this. Let's see.
What's on your mind?
What do we do? I'm going to break a long-standing rule of mine.
No.
Here,
you're going
live
negative.
on the podcast, I'm going to talk about a competitor.
Oh.
So, yeah. So normally.
I have to shut the door.
Yeah.
No
Normally, I'm not, just to let you know, I'm not a product guy. My name's Matt Olney. I do threat intelligence work.
Yeah.
I don't know a 3350 from a 7290 or if those are actually products that Cisco sells.
Is that a thing?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Pretty good pull.
But what I do a lot, and to preface what I'm about to say, we're very aware of what we're doing here. This is a marketing exercise. Like, our normal day job is threat intelligence work or messaging or operations or communications to customers. But this is a marketing gig, right? We're here. We're gonna talk some stuff. We're gonna entertain you. We're gonna feed you beer. We're gonna feed you food. We're gonna talk enough security to justify that we're a security company. We will get there. But we're gonna try to be entertaining as well. But I think it's fair to say that we have a lot of things that we think about how marketing is done in security today.
Oh my God.
For example, if you are at DEF CON on Friday, Jennifer Leggio from Flashpoint is giving a really interesting talk on the ethics in disclosures, and particularly looking at how valuable those big flashy logos and pre-marketing campaigns, and whether that is a net benefit to society or not. You probably make a guess as to how that.
I have an answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so this morning, I woke up at 4:30.
Now, wait, before you even go into this, we're absolutely sure this isn't a joke.
No, this is not a joke. This is not a joke. I went and I looked up on Checkpoint's site. Okay. Because I wanted to see. And when one of the guys I follow on Twitter had taken a screenshot of something from Checkpoint, and the screenshot said, "Checkpoint Infinity, unprecedented protection against Gen 5 mega cyber attacks."
Shit, does it do blockchain?
Where do I sign up?
I just got my head around Gen 4 mega cyber attacks.
I know. I was behind.
What about the turbo attacks? Is that like a subset?
It's
Mega cyber turbo?
It's just
what is a cyber? What is a?
I can't imagine. Like, so I mean,
You said piece by piece. Just do one at a time. Just one piece at a time.
One piece. Just break it down. Start at the beginning.
Well, Marty Resch replied to me just to go with Checkpoint Infinity, and he was just concerned because he's business savvy. He was concerned about if you launch a product named Checkpoint Infinity, where do you go from there?
Right.
Like,
+1.
When you go to Gen 6, that Uber attacks. What do you name your product?
The big one.
And so, I didn't have an answer for him. Although I did explain to him that there are different kinds of infinities, Marty. So
Edmund saw one the other day that had 6-dimensional data views, so maybe they could go for that.
Oh, hey, we have train whistles.
Nobody listens to the podcast. They have no idea what any of this shit is.
We have those on the table if Craig does interrupt, or any of us interrupt.
But it'll be Craig.
It'll be Craig, for sure.
At any time, feel free to blow the train whistle and let us know that somebody has screwed up.
So
Interrupted. Go on.
So I did. Someone did. So you made a 538 reference. We were talking about this morning.
Yeah.
And you were like, good use of marketing or bad use of marketing. And like, it's like, that's just. And look, we don't. I think I've said this publicly. We don't always agree with everything that Cisco puts out in his marketing stuff. I mean, we certainly get an opportunity to have input into it. And I think for the most part, they are responsible in what they say. It's not. They don't always use the terminologies that we would want to use, but we're technical people. They're trying to communicate to a broader swath of people, and that's generally where they get a little more vague than we would like. I think is where they go. This is.
I don't even know how to dig into that.
It said Infinity, it said Cyber, it said Mega, it said Gen 5. It hit all the marketing points. All it needs is blockchain, AI, and machine learning, and we're good to
That's
go.
probably what they're saving for 6.
So
No, that was Gen 4. This is beyond machine learning.
If you have Gen 5 attacks, you might wonder, what's the Gen 1 attack?
I would like to know what a Gen 5 attack is.
So, like, I saw this morning. I didn't have a lot of time to dig into this, and I'm sure. Look, if you're interested in this, Checkpoint's got a lot of information on the site. Please go review what they have. It may be completely defensible, and it's not like I'm giving them an opportunity to defend their marketing.
They have a booth.
You'd be like KSL mega attack. But Gen 1 is virus.
Okay.
Oh, they actually have a scale for that.
Yeah. Gen 1 is virus.
Oh.
Gen 2 is network.
Okay. Why? All right. Now let's get through them. All right.
Gen 3 is applications.
Okay.
And Gen 4 is polymorphic content.
What's 5?
Mega attacks. Are you not listening?
What the hell? Where have you been, Joel? So wait, how did you have viruses before you would have a network attack? Like, I mean, people's mailing floppies, or like, how did that?
Checkpoint's old school.
That's okay.
Yeah, they're old school. So it's good news. I mean, it's about Jennifer Leggett. Just to let you know, her and I talked a little bit before. She used to be SourceFire's chief marketing officer. Three of us are from the SourceFire acquisition of Cisco, and so we know Jennifer very well. So take my recommendation with that little piece of salt. But her and I talked a little bit about it and about ethics. Like basically, we just had a long conversation. Just the E word, period. And there is not enough use of the word ethics in our work, in technology, period, but in particularly in cybersecurity work. And we've had some really challenging calls in Talos over the last year, and where you interwoven, what you would think of as ethics along with your business obligations and NDAs and all that, like just really complicated situations that have come up. Just, I'm sure if you've done any large scale threat intelligence work, you will have come across the same issues where you're balancing your obligations to one party versus another versus, we're a threat organization inside of a sales organization. And so they have sometimes that sales need kind of comes against. There's a lot of things that pull. And I have been super pleased with how, because a lot of times these decisions go above us, go outside of Talos in some cases. And I've just been super pleased with how Cisco has conducted itself based on our investigation.
You know we're still on the roundtable, right?
Yeah, hold on. We got an hour and a half. So I want to cut content now.
I'm just saying now everybody understands why it takes so long to edit an episode.
Yeah.
That's all I mean.
So
Mitch is our editor, look, for those of you that
it's either aware. That or we can cover why Matt is the best dressed.
Is that really what's on that card?
So, I mean, there's not you can't.
That's not an argument. That's not an argument.
Ethics. So, and it was the reason I'm kind of I can spin on it is that I've thought a lot about it recently. Cisco has an outstanding ethics program built into it, and I don't know how much I can go into it, but just know that they think about it, and it shows in some of their system making. And what I would say to you in terms of, we always try, one of the things that we beat the drum on this time is always have a takeaway when we talk. And so one of the things I would say from my roundtable piece takeaway is, if you are going to act ethically, if that is something that you're committed to, if you think that you're a person who will act ethically, you need to have conversations about what that means before that situation comes up. You need to have people that you can talk to. A weird situation came up Friday, and I went down to talk to one of our lawyers. And it wasn't a legal thing. It was just, there was a lot of moving pieces, and I went, Fitz, I want to run this all by you to make sure I'm not missing something, because there's some big hitter parties involved and some complicated issues, and so have your support system in place for like helping you figure out what the right decision is. And if you're a manager, engage your employees and tell them what your organizations, whether that's Cisco or Talos, or for me, threat intelligence and interdiction, what that organization's ethical stances are and why, so that when they're going about their business, they'll know what you would want done there. It's not something that you can suddenly say, well, the right thing to do is this, and without having had a conversation. So that's the takeaway from my roundtable is talk about ethics, talk about it ahead of the problem. And hopefully I've burned enough time for the three guys to come up with something to talk about.
Joel, we are here in Vegas now. What is on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, like you went like a full 20 feet into the end of the deep end, like on the round table. I like it. Don't get me wrong. It's a worthwhile topic. I'm just, how do you follow that?
You literally
talk about why I'm the best dressed.
Well, I think that's an easy decision because you care. And
always the best dressed.
You generally are.
It's my brand.
No, so again, and I'll make a callback. This is a Jennifer Leggio topic. She had tweeted last week. I don't know how many of you follow Jennifer Leggio on Twitter, but I do. And one of the things that she said,
media fighter, you probably should.
Yeah,
media fighter, yeah,
with a PH. And one of the things that she said was, if you've ever attended a Black Hat event like this, one of the parties, if you've ever been to Rapid 7 party, Cisco party, if you've ever been to one of these parties, and you're like, wow, this is really cool, like, this is, or, this is lame, like, try playing one of these things. Like, and so Black Hat, and I retweeted it because I thought it was like, oh my God, you should try and play one of these things. But Black Hat is one of these things where I'm heavily involved in the planning. There's a lady in the back named Angela that is heavily involved in the planning, and there's a couple other people here from Cisco. Ashley back there. Hi, Ashley.
Hey,
She's
Ashley.
eating. Very involved in the planning for this type of event, and this is hard, and it takes 9 months of our life to do this stuff, and it's so enjoy
we have
it.
a really good example right here, right?
What?
Well, this event started at noon.
Yeah.
Just in case we looked a little stressed at noon.
Yeah.
This event started at noon. 200 people registered for this event.
250 something.
283.
Yeah.
We sold out in 5 days?
Like 5 days.
5 days.
Cap registration.
And so, obviously, if you look around, you can't fit that many people in here. And so we capped it. There was like 7 people in this room at noon.
So here's the thing. This is the culture around Black Hat, and you guys all nod when I probably say this, is everyone signs up for everything. And then you attend what is convenient for you to attend, right? So how many people are registered for some party tonight? How many people are registered for multiple parties tonight? You guys know you're going to one.
Put their hand up, then put their hand up for the first question. He's like, oh, I thought you meant absolutely one party. I've got 7 parties. So
I've got 7. I'm going to all of them. So I've been to, this is, I don't know, my 15th year in a row I've been to this thing. I've never been to more than, maybe 2 parties in a night.
Oh, in a night?
In a night.
Well, I've been to more than 2.
Maybe when I was young.
I love Patrick Mullen one year, and that was a bad idea.
That's always a bad idea. So anyway, this is a super hard thing to plan. Enjoy everything that you're doing. Be aware of what you're signing up to do, that's what
Craig, what is on your mind today?
So my pain this week. How many people here know what 2-factor authentication is?
Oh, Jesus.
Right?
Listen to the question. How many people here know what 2-factor authentication is?
So here's the problem.
Literally everybody in this
Who
room
does not have their hand up?
You can't go to any parties if you don't know what 2-factor authentication is.
There are 20 booths over there. Go find out.
So how many people followed the news articles over the last 2 or 3 weeks about all the problems with SMS-based 2-factor authentication and how there are people in the data centers that are effectively selling out codes and information to hijack SIMs and facilitate attacks through 2-factor over SMS? Right. And so, I see a lot of people say 2-factor over SMS is worthless. I'm not saying that. I'm saying 2-factor over SMS, it's a good start. Right. It's like using a good password on a machine. That's great. But you really need to move over 2-factor to some sort of token, be it Google Authenticator or an RSA hardware token. And I was signing up for a new account at this bank. And so,
which bank was it?
What's the bank account number?
Craig. So you log into the bank's website, you order your little RSA2 hardware token, right? You have to pay like $20 for it. I'm like, awesome, they support hardware tokens. This is the best, right? I'm perfectly happy. And then I get the token and I set it up on the machine and it works great. And then I notice a little box next to it that says mobile. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? Well, you can click that box and then have it text you over SMS a token. So they basically took better security and made it worse. So that really irritated me.
They made it easier, Craig.
This 2-factor thing, man. There has been like a complete backlash against SMS-based 2-factor authentication.
Yeah. Well, it was
I'm not saying
up until now, it was okay.
It was okay.
It's
still okay.
Yeah. Oh,
Still okay. It's like everything else. There is a level of threat. If I could make it so every time you put in a password, any site, anywhere, you still had to go through SMS authentication, we would be a much safer society.
Okay.
Would it be perfect? No.
Nope.
But it's
better what you got now. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so
but what you're saying is an appropriate problem. Like, so my bank, for example, my bank doesn't have hardware tokens. It only has SMS off. But my WoW account has a hardware token.
Well, I mean, you're
Battle.net. Thank you so much.
So yeah, I tried to report this. We're gonna escalate it, and I don't think it'll ever get fixed. But yeah, it's interesting when people do something right, and then for convenience sake, backdoor that security, because they're doing it because people lose the token, and they don't want to go reset up a new token and mail it back out. But as a result, I'm paying for extra security and not getting it, which was awesome.
Fantastic. Nigel,
sir,
I know that everybody in this room has no idea what is going to come out of your mouth next.
You want to know what's on my mind?
What's on your mind right now?
Let me think.
Is it a conspiracy theory?
5 days. 5 days to go.
Days.
Mighty Reds are kicking off Sunday morning. Everybody needs to be watching that one. Obviously, supporting Liverpool. And also, just like a good quick shout out to Ian Wright, Ruud Gullit, and Martin Keown for actually getting the correct predictions for the champions of the English Premier League this season. They have all backed Liverpool. They are all correct.
They're all right.
All of them correct. The other 20-odd people who did not do this on the BBC website are wrong.
Okay.
All of them are wrong. Okay? And the other thing that was on my mind is the song of my people.
Nigel, we actually did get this question. Can you sing along?
I could. And blown, walk on, with hope in your hearts, and you'll never walk alone.
There were
Cheers. Never walk alone. Huh?
beautiful. Get this man a beer.
That man gets more drink tokens.
Yes, more drink tickets for this man right here.
The other thing that's on my mind.
There's a follow-up question.
Oh, okay. Follow-up question. Go on.
And I don't know if you recognize the writing on this card.
Yeah, maybe.
But it says, question for Nigel.
Yes.
Can you sing the Manchester United Football Club song?
No, they don't actually have one.
You don't have one?
No.
It's because they're soulless?
Nothing, because they're soulless. Their crowd is very quiet. We can't hear them sing anything, basically.
Okay.
There's one song in England that goes, you only sing when you're winning. And since they never win, they never sing.
Okay.
Yeah, that was so we have 5 days left, and then we can have regular Nigel back.
Yes.
And everything will be okay.
Yes.
The beatings will stop.
The end of the dark times is near.
Are we still in conspiracy Nigel time?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard a good conspiracy.
That is the biggest conspiracy of all. What happened to Conspiracy Nigel? I think they got a hold of him.
I've been watching a lot of conspiracy TV.
I think YouTube shut him off.
Blocked his IP.
Unfortunately,
post on Facebook.
I mean, I was watching a lot of Alex Jones, but he kind of got taken off of YouTube, and Facebook, and Apple, and all those places. I couldn't believe it.
He's killing it.
I don't know. When you guys listen to this podcast later, and are weird because some of this isn't on the actual podcast. There are reasons.
So I have one question that I think we should address from the audience. So a lot of folks here are newer to the podcast, or maybe haven't heard us go through this before.
Yep.
So I think we should actually go in the reverse order that we just did.
Yep.
They would like to know who you really are, and why you're doing this.
Why are we doing what?
I mean, like
this?
I mean, like metaphysically, like who are you really as a person? Like you're on your third date, and
I am a banana.
Figure out whether this is a thing, and she's just like, who are you really? Like, are we?
The Barbara Walters. Like, are you? What kind of tree are you? What kind of tree are you?
It's a bit of an existential question, Mitchell, which is difficult for me to answer. But
you exist.
I do. On this plane, for sure.
At least.
You're here with us.
I think I might not. I'm not sure if there's actually another spacecraft coming past tomorrow, a meteorite of some kind. We may need to get on.
You don't have a pocket full of quarters and white Nikes. You got
So I run I run the operations stuff for Talos, all of our networks, and I look after our data and kind of try to keep it as secure as possible. And I have a number of other things that I do too. Some guys, so Eves is over here, and she runs the vulnerability discovery team, who just uncovered 254 vulnerabilities over the past 12 months. Well, from last Black Hat to this one. If you haven't seen him talk, he'll be in the Cisco booth talking about those things. I don't remember when. My bad. I don't have the schedule in front of me, so I'll tell you exactly when it is. But he's got some nice information about those vulnerabilities that you can listen to. So if you get a chance, go down there and listen to Yves talk about those things. Anyway.
That was a good plug.
And then obviously, I'm also in charge of footy for Talos. And who we all
I think
support.
that's fair.
General manager.
Are you better at that than conspiracy?
Yes.
Craig, who are you? What do you do?
So my name's Craig Williams. I run Talos Outreach. If you want the existential who am I, I like puzzles. I like taking things apart, figuring out how they work. I've done it since my earliest memory. Take random shit apart and not be able to put it back together and then be like, oh, wow, now I'm screwed.
That's what happened.
That explains a lot.
That's what happened to Craig.
Really?
Craig took himself apart and hasn't been able to put himself back
Didn't know how to
together.
put it back together.
He self-Humpty
It
Dumpty.
wrapped around. Yeah.
Humpty Dumpty.
Fun fact. I don't think I've shared this in the podcast before. The way I got my first computer was back when Linux was like Red Hat Mother's Day 1.0. And I would compile a new kernel, and I would forget to run Lilo. And so my parents would come back to try to use their computer, and it would be hung at the bootloader, and they're just like, what the After doing that twice, I got my own computer, and it was awesome.
Joel.
My name is Joel Essler. I run the open source and design group at Cisco. I run everything. No, at Cisco Talos. And that's what I do. That's who I am. I don't know. Existentially, I identify as a banana. So
that explains so much.
An attack helicopter. No?
No, yeah. I'm getting it. You're really into it. You're selling the banana thing.
Matt?
My name is Matt Olney. I'm the head of threat intelligence and interdiction. So if you follow the Talos blog, some of my team's work, principally over the past year, has been like VPN filter, NotPetya. Me and Craig work together on CCleaner and Bad Rabbit. Basically, who am I as a person? I would say that there's a T-shirt that I wear anytime law enforcement shows up in my office, or any of those lawful good sort of organizations that
lawful good
are really into like
use that phrase carefully.
Rules, protocols, and rules.
Yeah.
And so I always wear my chaotic good shirt.
Yeah.
And so I've made a career through SourceFire and into Cisco and Talos of finding things that are not correct or done the right way, and then fixing them. And so I pretty much have built the piece of threat intelligence interdiction that, yes.
Ravenclaw.
Oh, yeah.
Ravenclaw.
Yeah.
Slytherin.
Yeah.
Hufflepuff.
No idea. I'm reading it to my kid now.
I was sorted into Gryffindor last time we were all together.
That's right.
Gryffindor.
Yeah.
There you go. That explains all you need to know about the five of us.
So yeah, that's who I am. Why? What was the other part of it?
Why are you doing this?
That's a good question.
So, Craig, this is your idea, right? The podcast is your idea.
Yeah.
I think
it's his fault, ladies and gentlemen.
There is nothing that you're seeing up here now, except for the fact that we're aware of you, that you're here, that is any different than if we're all sitting in Nigel's office having a conversation. The same dumb topics, the same sudden deep dive into technical stuff, the same worrying about the state of the industry, the same criticality of how things are done. All of that exists, and so just thought that it would be good to put it out there and share the thoughts so that we can try to help. Obviously help Cisco's name get out there, which I think is the ultimate marketing piece, but also put the ideas out there about how things should be done or what's important or what you should worry about or not worry about.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to your opener, right? Like the reason I wanted to do the podcast was that there's so much bad information out there. Not that people are spreading it intentionally, but like the marketing people aren't talking to the smart people.
No.
Right. And so I would have these customer briefings where these customers would come up to me with these thoughts on how to protect themselves against threats. And it was literally crazy shit like, do I need blockchain? And I was just dumbfounded.
Yeah, I think you probably did.
Yeah, I was just dumbfounded. Like, okay, you heard a new word in the news and you think that's what you need. Like, that's not how security or defense works. Like, let's sit down and explain this. And so that's what Matt and I started doing with Joel and Nigel. And we ground through a couple of bad podcasts. We had to repivot and redesign our theory, and finally we got it down and started cranking out podcasts after, I think,
Mitch was on a podcast.
Mitch was our host the whole time. But how many did we grind through before we actually had when we could publish?
Well, all right, so hold on. There was 4. So just to let you guys know, we are also all, so the 4 of us all report to Matt Wyszynski. Matt's the head of Talos. And so there were 4 that you made. And Wyszynski was like, you can't publish that.
There's actually 3. One of them Wyszynski never heard.
Right.
Intentionally.
Because you knew better.
We knew.
That was just not going to happen.
We may have had things a little bit more broad in the ability to talk about things initially.
But that was broad.
Well, and frankly, we were just figuring out how to even make a podcast.
And flow.
It took a while.
Mitch
What
actually
we
did quite a
need-
bit of the work.
Not
What
saying
we
it works
needed
now.
was a really slow and cumbersome, extremely distributed database.
Why did we not launch this on the blockchain? Should have done it in the first
Wait,
place.
where every listener has to vouch for another
Yes,
listener?
and they have to, that's how you subscribe. You have to. It takes.
You have to know
3
another
days.
listener?
Yes,
Okay,
that's pretty much
all
how
right.
it is. But to wrap up that question, so my name's Mitch, and who am I? Why do I still don't know why I do this. Like I put
Because
up-
we told
We
you to.
don't know why you
That's
do it
why.
either. I mean,
And having worked for now 2 people on this particular stage, I,
making
can tell
the
you I
rounds.
still have no clue why I do this whatsoever. But I came into what we do from the business side since university, since college. I've worked for security startups and been on the business side of that and the customer side. Currently, what I do for Talos in my day job, in my real life, is I work with a lot of our branding. And I work with our comms and how we kind of approach the outside world on a big scale. That's mostly my job. My official title, however, actually is Master of Lies, which I think is inappropriate for a media and comms person.
He's Talos marketing.
to have.
yes.
So that's
You also take an inordinately amount of time to edit this particular podcast. So if you're
I
thinking
think
about
everybody
listening
in
to
this room is
you
going to
know.
be on my side of this one right now.
What?
That's,
No. It takes like 5 minutes maximum.
It does. All you gotta do is cut out the bad
That's
parts.
it.
I think it's a button, right?
Yeah,
It's like a
pretty much. Just
export to
edit.
disk.
It just says edit podcast.
Yeah, well, it is.
Export
They
to
actually
disk.
got rid of that in the new version of Logic Pro. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, do you need
it's
to
not
buy
that
a
anymore.
dongle?
I do have a legitimate question though that I want to
Okay.
pose to the group.
All right.
All right.
And I want just jump in. We don't really need to go in order on this.
Okay.
We want to talk about the difference between crypto mining and crypto jacking.
Consent.
Yeah.
All right, next.
Is that it?
Next question.
Well, so here's the dumb. Like so one of the things that I say a lot is words have meaning.
Yes.
Like they're you cannot just say words, right? And so crypto mining is a thing that legitimate people do. I don't understand why.
For
but
some
they do.
value of legitimate.
I'm sure Warren will explain it to me.
Where's Warren?
And
Where is Warren?
And so when we are deciding whether something is bad or malicious, a crypto mining application at your house or in your crypto mining farm is fine. A crypto mining application on your router or in your enterprise is not fine.
It's probably not okay.
And so there was a lot of discussion. There was a lot of discussion about whether to use the term crypto mining, crypto jacking. I think we just decided crypto jacking, just the connotation was all wrong. And generally, we were just like crypto mining because we're an enterprise security company. Generally, is not a thing that enterprise security companies use. And so we generally rely on that. Do you want to talk about some of our crypto mining research?
Well,
Yeah, so we've done a lot of research, and I wish, actually, was Marshall just in here? Marshall's team actually wrote a really, really good white paper we put out. If you guys are not familiar with how we defend against that, there's Marshall. Wave to the people.
He runs our detection and research team at Talos.
Which, by the way, is the next question. So whoever asks, who is the guy taking topics?
I have a feeling I know who wrote the question.
So what Marshall's team did is they basically went through all the detection content for crypto mining and explained it, and then actually explained the results we've seen in the telemetry, which, to be fair, every time I look at it, I'm just shocked. Like, crypto mining is prevalent. It's bad. But when we look at it in the Meraki telemetry compared to other types of attacks, it's 5 to 10 orders of magnitude higher. And every time you look at it, it's increasing. So crypto mining is getting worse. People need to look for it. You need to look in your systems for it. If you think your enterprise doesn't have any crypto mining going on, you've just not found it. I guarantee you it's there. I guarantee you it's there at least to a small extent. And it's going to keep being a bigger problem until there's a better way for bad guys to make money, right? This is like how ransomware was before crypto mining was profitable. Everybody focused on ransomware. Well, now everyone's focused on crypto mining. There's kits out there for complete idiots to run. We see some hilarious shit.
How many have you got?
So my favorite one was where somebody had put up a crypto mining open source project on GitHub, right? Sounds fair enough, right? Okay, maybe it's for academic or you want to mine on your farm. That's cool. But the author had put his email address into the little field for, who's to send the hashes to or whatever. And so this bad guy forgot to set it up, and he just started deploying it by default, mining all over the internet, and effectively he's mining for the author of the tool and not himself.
Thank you.
I thought that was hilarious.
I didn't do it.
Why didn't we do it? That's a great idea.
I know.
Like, that's legal, right? Like, it's not my fault that he put my mining thing off and sent me all the money.
That's a good
there's
point.
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you didn't do it,
voluntarily did it,
right?
But are we going to open up a project like Metasploit where we put some frameworks out there? Hey, Marshall, can we get open source on that? So I guess my point is, what's interesting about crypto mining is not only is it getting more and more pervasive, but the barrier to entry is getting lower and lower. Now, as a result of that, we do see some funny stuff, and we do see a lot of mistakes, which are, of course, amusing. But let's be real here. 99% of the attacks are successful, probably, and well thought out. Right?
Don't quote that statistic.
No.
Don't quote that.
Because he just said probably after the 99% statistic.
Okay, that's not a good stat.
Let me rephrase, because words mean things. Most attackers know what they're doing. So don't think that because we tell funny stories about attackers who make mistakes, these are like bumbling fools. Most of them know what they're doing and are successful.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of so I think the evolution of crypto mining, there's a lot to learn from it. Like, you guys are the reason that crypto mining is so popular right now. I don't know if you know this.
Yeah, so stop mining.
So here's the deal. If you go back 2 years, and we're talking to customers, they are losing their minds about ransomware. Yep. The FBI is cold calling us on ransomware cases. Yep. It is. Everybody has their attention. Every booth out here at Black Hat has an anti-ransomware strategy. Like, somebody had found a way to make a lot of money, and in doing so, had caused a lot of damage. And suddenly, that's awful. But what happened next is they're like, well, why don't we make it a subscription service? Because what your business class will tell you is recurring revenue is best revenue. And so if I can make either 15. What was so Sam was asking, the last time I looked, Sam was asking about $23,000 per network. So I can make $23,000 once. I immediately disclose to the network owner that they're breached. I immediately engage law enforcement. In Sam's case, I don't care if it's a hospital or not, so I really have law enforcement's attention. And so there's just nothing but heat. And every smart guy at every revenue-generating company is working on an anti-ransomware case. Everybody's tracking Sam. Everybody is all over this. For the most part, you guys don't care about crypto mining. Right? No. We are not hearing, like, from a vendor side.
Yeah.
There are no less actors. There's no fewer bad guys. There's just as much bad stuff happening out there. There's no panic. There's no hue and cry. And so there's less heat on them. That stuff will sit for years, and they'll just make money coming in. And the problem is, what will then happen is, your tier 1 SOC will get an alert. No, crypto mining, what's it? Come on in. Crypto mining, what's it's in here. And they'll be like, oh, okay, it's just crypto mining. Clean it up and move along with their lives. That crypto mining piece of software got in through a successful breach of your defenses. And crypto mining works at scale. They make, like, from a single computer, like 25 cents a month or something. They need lots of computers, so they need to be successful broadly. And so they're hitting everything with their most reliable attack. And they're not changing a lot because changing costs money. So it's the same dumb attack over and over again. Well, let me tell you what. If you're breached by someone's dumbass crypto miner attack and it's on your box, that's not the only thing on your box. I promise you. And so what we found, even in SamSam, is when we started digging into how these things are being deployed, is the metric was not, how many boxes were compromised. The metric was how many actors were on every box that we looked at. And so in one SamSam investigation, we saw 23 different actors on one box.
That's crazy.
So,
and just to be clear, I don't want anybody to misquote you. He's not saying SamSam is crypto mining.
Yeah. Correct.
To show you how prevalent of a thing this is, how big of a thing this is, and we're all saying, oh my God, this is huge. 6 of the top 10 IPS signatures that we see in the field as alerting are crypto mining.
And they're in
successful crypto mining.
Yes.
Which means breached,
already infected,
deployed, sending data back to the mining website.
Yes. It is our 6 of our top 10.
We are starting to run up against some of the time for some things we want to do today. We're already 15 minutes behind. We do want to bring up here in just a minute.
Girls by Beastie Boys.
Well, the song itself, yes. We do want to bring up our friends from CyberWire. I want to bring up Dave Bittner in just a minute, our very special guest today. Before we do that, however, we have a little bit of a surprise guest who wasn't on the schedule.
We do.
I want to bring up Neil Jenkins from the Cyber Threat Alliance. And I would like him. Big round of applause. Okay, let me grab a chair from the end here for you.
I didn't authorize this.
You don't get to authorize these things.
You don't get to authorize these things, Matt. Neil, here's a mic for you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Neil, how many of you guys have heard of Cyber Threat Alliance? Anybody?
I've heard of the Cyber Threat Alliance.
So why don't you explain to us a little bit about what the Cyber Threat Alliance is, and then we'll get into, you and I talked, and we have kind of a special little thing we want to do today. So I'll let you go ahead and take it from there.
So thanks. So the Cyber Threat Alliance is a cooperative organization of cybersecurity companies that have come together to share information and help bridge the threat intelligence gaps that a lot of different companies have. So the goal is to come together, share information, cooperate operationally, and improve cybersecurity for everybody. And so one of the things I do is I help manage the threat intelligence teams for our member companies. And through that, we come together, we talk about what we're seeing, what's important, what our folks are working on, and share that information. And so, as many of you know, especially those who listened to the podcast several months ago, the Talos team was working on VPN filter. They brought that information to CTA members prior to the release so that our members could understand the threat, understand what they were doing, and then help amplify what Talos wanted to do. Because if you remember, you really had to go out and kind of touch those boxes to fix that problem, and it wasn't going to be something that was going to be solved by just one voice out in the wilderness yelling to fix this. So what we wanted to do was bring as many companies together to do that. And so as a result of that, we've really had a lot more of that kind of sharing within CTA over the last few months, and it's really starting to build, and we're really getting excited about what we're able to do through the Alliance. And we got to thinking about it, and we wanted to find a way to recognize Matt for that, and also Adam Flatley from the Talos team, who was integral with it.
Go ahead and raise your hand, Adam. This guy right there.
And so, and this actually came up on your podcast about VPN filter, where Matt, you guys talked a little bit about CTA, and Matt mentioned something about needing uniforms and talking to myself and Heather about it. That never happened, but it did get us thinking.
Okay.
And
I can't remember what I said, but it was probably dumb.
Were you officially like X-Men spandex with this?
You know what I think it was.
Okay.
No capes. That was the only.
No capes.
No
that
capes
was the joke.
fine, but I don't want to see Matt in spandex. Nobody wants to see me in spandex. But what we did do is we went out and we had these special CTA belt buckles of outstanding sharing made. And I have one for
thank
Matt,
you very much.
And I have one for Adam.
Adam, come on up.
Blanc, are you fetching beers?
The best way to use Teams, by the way, Joel, right there.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. That's good.
What do you want?
But we do really appreciate what you guys have done.
Tell
for
the guy
this.
the good one. He knows what I'm talking about.
So, to both you guys, thank you, Neil.
Thank you very much.
What's the future of Cyber Threat Alliance? Like, how are we going forward?
Yeah,
The good one you gave me earlier. Yeah. I'm talking to the bartender. That's right.
I'm talking to Neil. Everybody else is talking to Neil.
Beers are very important. We're trying to do whatever we can to increase the quality of the information sharing that we're doing within CTA. And what we want to do is move to an area where we can start to disrupt actors more holistically and more broadly. We're looking at building out our recruitment, building out our membership, and trying to just do more operationally. So if you're interested in the alliance, if you're interested in making sure that either your company or a company that you work with is a member of the alliance, feel free to reach out and we can start some conversations.
So Thanks, I know most of you haven't listened to the pod, so let me just give you some background on VPN Filter and kind of set in how we were thinking going into that problem. So our estimate, along with our partners, was 500,000 compromised devices, roughly. There may be more, there may be less, but this is a game of fuzziness. And one of the capabilities the actor had in this, we were firmly believing and continue to believe that it's a nation-state actor, was the capability to brick these devices. And we were faced with an increase in attacks in Ukraine, utilizing this particular set of malware, and had to decide, are we going to not disclose and allow whatever's happening in Ukraine to go forward, or are we going to disclose and kind of tip our hand to the actor that we're aware of this malware?
And wasn't it right on the anniversary of the NotPetya attack?
Yeah, and there was a lot of things in kind of indicating that this could have been fairly significant. And so working with our partners, we decided that, and they were very cooperative and understanding. There was no heartache about this, that we were going to disclose this and bring it up. And so in discussing, not just with people inside of Talos, but like executive level people in Cisco, like what's the worst case scenario? Worst case scenario is the actor turns off 500,000 network devices that we don't know where they are. Good. And so we felt we had to disclose. We had to bring in our partners in Ukraine. We had to talk about it. And so we did two things to try to minimize that potentiality. One is we took the exceptionally rare step of naming the actor behind who we believe to be behind it in APT 28, hoping that just so that they knew these are the people we believe at it, and decisions they make after we disclose, that's where you want to start looking. And we also worked with Neil. I think we gave you maybe 2 weeks heads up. We're doing a thing, and we may need you on short notice to kind of pull together stuff. And so 24 hours before we published, we briefed, I don't know them all off the top of my head, but Palo Alto, Symantec, Rapid7, McAfee, I mean,
Checkpoint.
Yeah, name them.
NTT Security,
like all of the partners that you can see on the page. And let me, to brag a little bit, I'm really good at my job, right? So
it's fair. It's fair,
right? But when I brief these companies, I didn't brief their CEO or their marketing person or some rando on an Intel mailer. I briefed the person in my position there. And they asked super challenging questions about our assumptions and what we knew and what our plans were. Like, it was an hour long, the best set of questions to making sure that we had everything on board. We shared every sample we had. We shared all of the indicators we had, all in advance. So when we published, all of those companies had their protections out. They were able to publish to their customers because I can't reach everybody out there. And this was very much as much a PR campaign as it was a Patch campaign. And that is the absolute best advertisement for CTA I can think of. Is there was never a time before CTA where I would have had that capability. I would have known a guy at this place, a guy at that place.
Random guy,
yeah, and he may be the head of threat intelligence, or he may be a threat intel lead that just went over there. And so they gave us our best from each of those companies. And they took us through the ringer and were then able to come out on the other side and provide their protections to their customers.
Well, thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Mitch. Thanks, Pat.
Thanks for coming up.
Thank you.
So we do have a special guest that we have been very vocal about in this podcast. I do want to welcome. How many of you guys listen to CyberWire? That's one of the top 5. Typically,
you're not allowed to clap. Stop it.
Top 5.
He probably listens to it a lot.
He's clapping his fan. Come on.
Top 5 cybersecurity podcasts. Here with us today, we have Dave Bittner.
from CyberWire. Come on up, and this is your microphone here, sir. Take the same seat.
Thank you very much.
Now, if you listen to CyberWire, Dave gets to ask all kinds of great questions to all kinds of people in cybersecurity. We may let you do that today.
Yeah.
But actually, that would be great if you would do
Probably
that today.
not, though.
I think we want to start off asking him a couple questions, though. So we had to all talk about where we came from.
Yeah,
what we did.
that's a good starter.
So let's see, what is it that you do, and what is CyberWire all about? Obviously, most of the people here understand what CyberWire is, but there may be a couple that don't. So maybe you could break that down real quick and
all right.
Where you come from.
So CyberWire is a daily cybersecurity news brief. We publish every day, Monday through Friday. It's about 20 minutes long. And it is everything you need to know on that day to be up to date on what's going on in cybersecurity. We are concise. Not everyone is.
No, that's you.
He's talking to you.
And also in every podcast, we typically have a guest, someone from industry, and we also have partners, people from industry, people from universities who are there to sort of help explain the complicated things that are going on in the world. And we're happy that you all are our most recent addition to our list of partners. So that's a real plus for us. So we have both the daily podcast. We also have a daily news brief, which you can get in your email box. Same sort of thing, everything you need to know today to be informed with cybersecurity. As far as me personally, how far back do you want to go? I'll begin. So my first experience with computers actually was in middle school. I got sent off to a local summer camp that was a room full of TRS-80 Model 1s, and was just hooked. Saved up my money from a paper route. There was a time when people used to deliver the news on printed out sheets of paper.
And you never stopped delivering the news.
That's you know what? I never made that connection.
It's good.
Wow, it all gets full circle, isn't it?
Full circle.
Gosh. Oh. So I saved up my money and I bought myself a TRS-80 color computer because I couldn't afford an Apple II, which is what I really wanted.
That's what everybody wanted.
Yeah. But then I got a modem, and so learned about bulletin board systems. Did a little exploration around this wonderful global telephone system that we have, because long distance used to cost money. It used to cost money to make phone calls that went around the world outside your city.
No,
right?
Like 30 miles.
Right.
Yeah. It wasn't far.
Yeah. No, and it cost a lot of money. And of course, I was a teenager when all this was happening, so I did not have any money. But the thing I did have was time. So I could figure out how to get around the fact that you had to pay money to make phone calls to connect to the bulletin board systems that were outside of your state. So I did that sort of exploration. And that was really my introduction to
freaking is
to computers. Yeah, freaking is exploration.
No, it's completely legal. What are you doing? Come on. What are you doing?
I'm amazed that there was never a knock on my parents' door to say, why is your house making 2,000 telephone calls every night between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m.?
Several of us.
Sequentially, mapping out the phone system.
Big data and
Right.
Machine learning.
Yeah, machine learning caught you.
So time passed. Went off to school. Went to college. Actually studied broadcasting, television, that sort of thing. When I was a side thing, when I was a kid, I did a lot of TV commercials and things like that. Remember, when we were kids, there were things called film strips, educational things in film strips. I was the kid who was the voiceover person in those film strips. So did a lot of that kind of stuff. And so spent some time in media, multimedia production companies, and then was brought into a cybersecurity company in Baltimore to help with their marketing and communications. They were publishing the CyberWire, and I suggested maybe we should do a podcast. And they said, that's a great idea.
That is a good idea.
What's a podcast?
Yeah.
So we talked about that.
Maybe you could tell us sometime, because yours seems to have your stuff together, and ours,
I could give you some tips. So it went from there, and that was 2.5 years ago. And since then, we've grown to become certainly one of the most popular podcasts in the sector, and thanks to support from folks like you and people all around who listen to us. So
I just had a
that's our
PBS
story.
commercial go through my head.
Yeah. Well, and ironically enough, I guess it's not ironic at all. It's just a strange coincidence.
Yeah.
But you guys are located kind of across the street.
Across the street.
Literally across the street.
In Maryland.
Yep. That is right.
Was
is super convenient when we want to send somebody over to be on one of your podcasts.
It is absolutely.
Oh, yeah, except in classic Talos fashion way.
We don't ever send someone from Maryland.
It's Craig from Texas.
It's Craig.
Texas.
It's all right.
We suck at this.
So you get to talk to Craig all the time.
I do.
So I assume, do you have any questions? Yes. First of all, apologies. We're sorry about that. We're not all like that. But do you have any other questions for the other guys? Anything that's been bugging you to talk to Matt or Joel or Nigel about what actually goes on across the street in that Talos office and how this thing goes?
Literally nothing on his mind that he could want to ask me.
That's an interesting question. Actually, what I would love to know is what is and perhaps this is a loaded question, but what is the separation between the Talos group and Cisco proper?
Good question.
That's actually a really good question.
That's a branding question.
It is for you.
It is.
And how much of that? And how much of that is organizational? How much of that is cultural?
No. So
that's actually
that's a great question.
Yeah.
So when SourceWire was purchased by Cisco, one of the assets that SourceWire had at the time was a team called the Vulnerability Research Team, or the VRT. And when we came into Cisco, we looked around at the different parts of Cisco and we said, what are the different parts of Cisco that kind of do what we do, that we could augment our existing organization, bring those groups in, and we can make a super group. Like, I don't know.
Toto. ABBA. Yeah.
ABBA. Who said ABBA? Yeah.
That guy. So,
doesn't go like damn Yankees. That'd be
no, ABBA. Shut
that
up.
doesn't count. He works for you. So,
and he will continue to work.
Right. Good job out of you. So when we brought that in, we said this. We came up with the moniker of actually, you came up with the moniker of Talos, and we went back and forth, and we wanted to establish a security brand that didn't have the word Cisco associated with it, right? Because when you think of Cisco, you don't think of that's a security company. You think that's a router switch company, or that's a phone company, or a telepresence company, right? So we wanted to be able to build that organically. So we came at it from the Talos angle. And so we created an organization within inside Cisco that we called Talos, and we built, all the research that we wanted to do, and we kind of built this gradually over time. And so now it's more of a branding exercise if we're throwing things like, the word Cisco in front of the word Talos. So Cisco Talos. And so we're kind of bringing that back in to kind of, to pull that leverage over. But there was a lot of understanding around Cisco is not known for their threat research or their threat intelligence, right? And so that's what we wanted to build.
And culturally, at one point I thought culturally there was like a big divide.
Yes.
Like, so when you get if you work for a small company, you're acquired by a big company. That's a scary feeling. So we were 650 people maybe at SourceWire when we got acquired, something like that.
No, we were over 1,000.
Were we? No, there's no way. Anyway,
all right.
Anyway, he runs operations. I think he would know. He doesn't run operations. He only ran operations for VRT. So, anyways, so I mean, even 1,000 people would still compare to Cisco.
Yeah.
And so you have spent however much time you've been at this small company building this culture and learning how to do things a certain way. And you go into Cisco, and we consciously, built like a little sphere
around our people.
Yeah. Like I'm a manager, so I will eat whatever the Cisco nonsense is because it's a big company. And there's always weird things big companies do that you have to. It's just if you work for one, you understand. And so as a manager, you try to take care of that for your people, and you let them just do their thing.
Yes.
And we were very conscious of that. But I will say whether Cisco's culture has changed, which I think is partially true, or whether ours has changed, which is probably also partially true, the discussions with people outside of Talos who are part of Cisco, particularly if they're like inside the security business group, if they're security people, are not as jarring as they were. And so I don't think there's this huge cultural divide at all. I think there's a unified thought process about security and its value and how to approach it.
Yep.
And I don't see what I feared. I think when we got acquired.
So and that's what everybody says when they see somebody acquired by Cisco. They're like, oh well, that goes to another company.
Who's the guy on Twitter was like, oh, they're going to kill him just like they killed SourceWire, and I'm like, excuse me.
All right. Can't help but notice we're still here.
I think SourceWire actually had a little bit bit of experience there with the VRT within SourceFire was kind of a little bit of a preparatory exercise for Talos within Cisco, at a different scale.
Pretty much, yeah. The other thing that happened on that acquisition was, which also kept us a little separate from other things, was that we had the whole team that comes in when you're on an acquisition, to kind of bring you into the greater Cisco. And Cisco IT came in and said to me, all right, we got to get all your stuff, onto the Cisco network, and we're all good to go and all that. I went, all right, I've got a couple of petabytes of live malware over here on a file server. What do you want me to do with it? And they're like, how about you keep your own network?
How about instead? They were not
happy about that. What do you mean you store malware? Well, I can't help but notice what we do for a living.
Where do we put the zoo?
Yeah.
where it is.
Yeah.
So how long a leash do they give you all?
In terms of what? No, it's a serious question. In terms of what?
Well, I mean, obviously you have the financial backing of a very large company, which is great.
Yep.
But how much freedom to make your own decisions and go your own way and explore your own paths do you have?
So when I started, I think I probably make the worst decisions.
Next to Craig.
I spend more time in the lawyer's office than probably anybody.
Okay, that's true. That's fair.
And it's not illegal. And it's not like a criminal legal thing. It's like making sure like the NDAs are straight and where is this on the boundary stuff. And so what I would say is when we started. And I had the threat intelligence introduction group. Since then, you've seen all the work that we've done. We are in Ukraine, not like I'm aware of Ukraine, but like I have boots in the ground in Ukraine. I have an employee in Ukraine now. We are going on site at customer sites and assisting them and evaluating them and giving them specialized, guidance, depending on if they're in an industry that we're interested in and we're particularly concerned about from like a national security perspective. And what I would say is, Cisco has never told me no, and I've come up with some pretty crazy ideas from where we were at that point. And I will say that Matt Wachinski, our boss, has certainly had to do some selling and some explaining about this is the thought process and here's how it maps to the overall security trend. But I've never walked away super butthurt from like a conversation where I'm like, that was a bad call, from Cisco.
Yeah, to put it in perspective, I remember when I started 15 years ago, and I, of course, was not on SourceFire. I was on the Cisco side the whole time. I was actually the contractor to first write IPS signatures for the Cisco legacy appliance full time. And so naturally, if you're writing an IPS signature, you've got to write a test case. Right? So you've got to write an exploit to test the signature. And the idea that they had Cisco employees writing exploits did not sit well with Cisco. But, like Matt said, when you explain to the right people why you're doing it and why it's a QA test case, they do come around. And so I think Cisco has gone through some really obvious growing pains, especially being on the inside over the last 15 years. But at the end of it, after we explain to everybody why, it's a better company for it. And we've recently taken certain security things to some of the highest executive levels in the company. Yeah. And
literally the highest.
and the right thing was done. And not only that, but they completely understood the issue and why it was the right thing, which is what I think shocked me the most was because, you talk to a lot of executives and they want to do the right thing, but they don't understand what the right thing necessarily is. Yeah. And we actually have taken the time, apparently often enough, that we can explain it and they get it. And they actually completely understand why it's the right thing and we get that support.
So I would say, so we recently acquired Duo Security or announced the intent to acquire Duo Security. And I'm sure Duo Security employees, if you're listening, you're probably feeling a little trepidation or uncertainty. And I'll share a private I'll share a private thing that I told Matt Wachinski in a conversation. This was 2 weeks ago. I got a phone call after hours. It was in relation to what you were talking about. And he explained the decision that was made and, kind of how it went. And obviously we can't go into it, but what I will tell you is what I told him in response to our situation. I told him, I said, Matt, we could have gone, because we were shopping SourceFire around to get sold. We could have gone someplace so much worse. Like every decision that I've seen made has been what I would call the right decision. And so
it's been beautiful.
Yeah, it's it can be scary. And look, Cisco, I'm sure they fuck up. I'm sure every big company
every now and then.
But I've seen important things happen where they've made the right call. So,
well, and I can answer your question is a tremendous amount. They give us a tremendous amount.
Coming over from the Cisco side, not from the SourceFire side, there was an allure of like, hey, like if I want to do my best work, I think I'm going to have a little more freedom to do that in a group that like lets people operate. And I mean, there was a difference in, and this is again just from like a business, comms, marketing side of the equation, not a research side of the equation. There was a lot more freedom to be able to, the leash is a little bit longer thanks to the groundwork that was laid by over the first year and a half before I came over, I think.
Yeah.
That was like that reputation was earned though within that organization to be like, okay, the inputs equal the outputs equal the inputs. These guys get to do what they want to do, and I think that we do get a little bit bigger leash than most people would expect out of a massive company.
Yeah, I'm curious about so this notion of scale, and as companies like Cisco acquire, we companies like SourceFire, and now it's going to be Duo. I think there's a concern about them losing their human scale, which is that the companies, for me, I think about like your cable company. Your cable company doesn't care if you switch to the other cable company because they have a built-in amount of churn. So that's a company that's gotten so big that you as an individual don't matter to them very much anymore, right? Because of the built-in churn.
Right.
What I wonder is, for a company Cisco's size, does having a group like yours allow them to maintain the human scale within a larger organization? Is that a way, by allowing you to be in your, for lack of a better word, bubble, does that allow your interactions to be insulated from the negative forces of a huge company that wants to pull itself away from that human scale? Does that make any sense?
I would say that from an external perspective, certainly this human scale thing happens, right? And you can feel it. So I started at SourceFire. I was an individual contributor, a research analyst one.
Yep.
And I've worked up as my team has grown. I can feel, even in a team of so I have 30 people now, I can feel the distance between me and the people furthest from me on the chart. So that scale, that happens. What I would say is, I don't know that problem is solved in the way that you're talking. What I will say is, the first thing I learned about Cisco that I thought was really impressive is, and we may have, can we talk about the CAP program at all? I don't know if that's.
I think so.
Yeah. So because customers know they're in CAP. So there's a program that, if a customer has a problem, it can be, and it is severe enough.
Massive problem.
Yeah. Like Cisco there's a problem Cisco, has to fix. There's a program that Cisco has where the CEO essentially is put into place a team of people who take over the management of that product, and they are outside of all the business.
It gets escalated to a certain point.
And the person who's in charge of that has an extraordinary amount of authority to fix things. And that was one of the most impressive things that I saw, because it was clear that Cisco had identified that as they grow, they will lose some of that, and they put into place pieces to try to save that kind of human touch, because that's a one human being to another human being. What I would say from a threat intelligence side, because there's a piece of this that matters, is one of the things that I do is I build the human to human connections. Me and my team build the human to human connections between organizations. I don't have a threat feed that I send out that someone consumes. I know this person at this company, and I know that person at that company. And what I will say is, as individuals sitting here or as individuals listening, you as a person matter. It matters who I know at a company.
Yeah.
I can feel the massive, the massive culture of the company affecting the decisions they have to make. But in the end, if you have a good person at the company that you can talk to, you can get good things done. And much of our work is finding the good person at the company to make sure that we can make the right things happen. It's like the opposite of what you were talking about, because I'm trying to fix that human scale problem, and not a lot of people have the option to do that. But that's one of the things that I think that we're doing, and also other Intel teams in the industry are doing, is trying to build this mesh, partly through Neil's work at CTA, is to make sure that the good people can get together and talk when it matters.
Yeah. How are we doing on time?
We have a few minutes if you want to ask another question or two before we go into our typical closing of our closing thoughts and parting shots.
All right, I'll do. So here's a good general broad question. We'll work down the line. We'll start with Nigel. We'll work our way towards me. Is there anything that you feel as though is not getting the proper attention it deserves when it comes to security?
Ooh. The proper attention that it deserves. As far as threats go, or as far as technology goes?
Your choice.
My choice.
Something
right.
that you,
yes.
in your mind, you think if only people were paying more attention to this, things would be better.
Okay. Well, I think the one that we hit on at the very start of the show, that was the two-factor auth thing. I don't think anybody pays enough attention to that, right, and how important that is, and how to do it correctly. And really, it's not a difficult thing to implement. We've done it, and we're...
And oddly enough, who do we use?
Oddly, we just acquired a company.
Oh yeah, we just acquired those guys. That's right. Yeah, we actually we were already users of Duo Talos before all of this went down. Actually, the greater Cisco used a different, weren't using Duo, but
I think that might change.
You think so? I hope it does. But yeah, I think that's the biggest. Well, that's the thing. You hear it thrown around a little bit, but there's still not enough people using it. Right? There's still not enough important things using it. Banks need to be using it all the time. You should be using a token. Right? You should be having to authenticate with an extra mechanism to get into anything that's even remotely important on the internet. Simple as that. Right?
Good times.
Craig?
Since Nigel stole mine,
it gets harder as you come down the row because they've been taken.
Yeah, you know what? Is totally not going to be left by the time it gets to me.
You know what? I think I'm going to go with an obvious one, but with a twist. I think people need to pay more attention to patching, but we know they won't. So I think what vendors need to do is move to automated patching for all the things by default and have a way to roll that back, right? It's not a complex system. If the system doesn't load all the way, roll back to the old version. Because the problem is we're selling more and more connected devices, cheaper devices that don't have development teams that won't get updates. And so I think vendors have to realize the fact that that model doesn't work. We need to stop buying those devices. We need to invest in devices that automatically patch. A great example of this was some of the work Yves' team did with the Samsung Smart Hub vulnerabilities. They could automatically patch, and Samsung would know when enough users had patched. And once they were happy, that's when we put out all the advisories, because at the end of the day, we're doing this research to get people protected. We're not doing it to get a headline, although sometimes that's cool, but we're doing it to stop the issues. And so I think if more people looked at automatically patching things when they designed the software for a product so that it actually worked well and could be extended, the world would be a better place.
Next.
Joel?
Throw away your Android phones, buddy. Go on.
I'm sorry?
Throw away your Android phones. Come on.
Well, this thing's...
Come on, Tim's buddy.
With your Android nonsense. It's... I was going to say, the first thing that popped in my head when you asked the question was passwords.
Yes.
And two-factor obviously is, the second stage of passwords.
Yes.
But even my wife will, and God bless her, love her to death, obviously, is, her passwords are just crap. And it's just
the fact that you know them is actually proof of
my
that.
point. I don't know them, but I used to, and I was like, honey, this sucks. You got to stop with this. But just more complex passwords, longer passwords.
How about passphrases?
Passphrases, and then augment that with the two-factor.
And can you roll in no reuse?
No one's supposed to say.
And no reuse, yeah. So there's a lot of steps. And I'll give an example because I'm the Apple guy on the podcast, right?
Yeah, you're the only Apple guy here. That's great.
No one else uses Apple devices. Literally everybody here. Is iOS 12, right? iOS 12 has a whole bunch of things. Oh, do you?
Yeah.
iOS 12 has a whole bunch of things on passwords and password reuse, right? So if you're using the same password in two different sites and you save that in iOS, it will tell you are using the same password in two different places. Stop doing that.
Cool.
And it will warn you, and it will come up and say, you are using this password on this site.
And
you
that's
should change
awesome.
it.
I'm going to shoot 10.
And it would say, please generate a new password for this site because you're using it over there.
Cool.
So I those little things, that's going to help so much.
Password walls
kind of a helper.
I'm sorry?
Don't most password vaults do that for you?
Yeah, but see, and this is where I think...
No, they don't, Mitchell.
Yeah,
That's not
there's debates on this. So
you can tell who doesn't use
it better?
Yeah.
Is it better to happen in a third-party product, or is it better to happen in the OS? And I think Apple's argument is it's better to happen in the OS.
Well,
right.
I will say specifically that my password vault, I use one, will tell me if I've reused a password someplace.
Sure, and that's what I'm saying. Like, is it better to have that? And okay, now I have to download another thing, and I have to store my passwords in another thing, or is it inherent just to happen in your browser where you use the password?
Do you know what else?
It's debatable.
You know what else happens in iOS 12?
Yeah.
All right. Is
that get skipped?
That in iOS 12, the phone
turn into the Apple Pie.
Will actually download and run Lua code, whether you want it to or not.
That seems less than ideal.
Do you think?
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing.
Lua is
Lua code. It's a programming language. It downloads and runs that code. And that's how it's going to keep certain things up to date and, refreshed and stuff like that.
Oh.
Which you'd think, all right, that's cool, because it's going to authenticate against Apple's servers, blah, blah, blah. But who could possibly pretend to be an Apple server and, maybe
not.
So no
man
one
in the middle, something, or I don't,
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Matthew.
So what's not being talked about enough? People are underrated.
Yeah.
People are underrated. Like, technology is overrated. People are underrated. Blockchain can suck it. Fifth generate what's widget can suck it.
That's a bumper sticker right there.
I will take 3 smart dudes and a sniffer port over almost anything. Especially at the CISO level, right? And I get it. I get why, because they're, again, back to the scale thing. They're trying to manage a 300-person security team, and what I consistently see is it's who's on that team. It's the stars on that team. I could give you every Cisco thing, every Palo Alto thing, every security device on the planet. And if your security team sucks, it's all useless. And you could roll up with 10 of the best security people on the planet with nothing but open source software and fundamentally change the security architecture of a network. And it's just not talked about enough. It's the people. It is the skill sets. It's the investment in human capital. It's not done enough. And I know I'm sitting here talking to people whose company has spent $3,000 for them to go to Black Hat. But, that's to a decision point, that's an easy $3,000 to spend. Right? Yeah, go learn about the latest hoopsie daisy, and all the vendors will teach you about blockchain and all that other crap. But when you come back, it's your Python skill, your packet skill, your just intuitive understanding of what is right and wrong in your environment. It's the years you've spent looking at your data over and over again to know something's not right here. I've spent the last year working with vanishingly small but critical organizations who have like one really good guy between advanced actors and things you really want under control. And it's that one guy, more than any technology I can teach them about. They're good, and they know how important the work they're doing. And I don't know how to solve this.
Well,
but it's the people, and we are super picky at Talos about how we hire. And maybe that's why we're hypersensitive to it. But you can ask any person in the management chain in Talos, and it's the people.
Yep.
The technology only matters after you get the people right, and so many people get the people wrong.
That was Lorene Grenier, who's a good friend of ours and used to work with us at the VRT. She was our keynote at the Talos Research Summit, and that was literally her, like, the premise of her keynote was.
I think that people can be taught better, and I think that your general public, the people who call us for like their tech support, your brothers, your moms, your cousins, all those folks can be taught to do the next level of things like segmenting their networks. I don't think that's beyond like public comprehension at all. But I think we don't necessarily elevate the conversation correctly.
when you have things like, we were talking the other day about like Fortnite is putting out an Android version of their game.
God,
this is obviously targeted at children, right? I mean, primarily.
Dude hates
but
Fortnite.
they're going off the App Store to do it. And so you're basically going to have to teach children to sideload an APK to put this on their phone, which they're definitely going to damn do. They want to play Fortnite. And so you're reinforcing security habits going the wrong direction. And if that's possible, which Fortnite will get put on a gajillion Android devices by kids, why can't we teach them to do that the other way?
Stop using Android, God.
I think it's possible. I think it's possible, and I think that we're failing maybe as an industry in like getting the general public up to that next level of security understanding with those next level things like segmenting your network. Keep your goddamn Alexa off the same whole flat network that the rest of your device uses. Like, get that IoT stuff off there. Protect yourself a little bit
I
better.
don't have an Alexa.
Your kids do.
Holy crap.
I had a really interesting conversation. I'm trying to figure out how much I can, because something you said, it's not just the people, it's trusting the people. One of my guys kind of had like a morale failure because my team in particular deals with some high-end threats, and it's just like, trying to, what advice do we give to companies, right? How do we help them looking at some of the things they're capable of? And a discussion was had with someone who was like, look, when we red team, we can tell the difference where the security team is trusted and they're not trusted, or where they're backed and where they're not backed. If the security team is backed by management, if they're like, if people aren't given a pass to get around policies, and if they enforce everything they say on paper, and no CTO, you don't get to do this because the policy is this, you have to have two-factor, or you have to change, or you can't have access to this, that shows up in the timeline. It won't necessarily prevent someone from getting in eventually. If you're working at a place where that's their life spending coming after you, that's troublesome. But if you can extend the attack timeline a year, 2 years, by being absolutely diligent, by trusting your security staff, that changes the equation, and it's noticeable on the red team side. The problem is you'll never see it on the defense side. You don't know how good you are, what good decisions you've made because the bad thing doesn't show up. And just it's hard to be diligent and it's hard to do those little things, but it matters. It truly matters.
So we are down to a point now where we have just a few minutes left. So I actually, instead of us doing the same thing that we normally do, I think it would actually be a fun thing if we let Dave close the show today.
Sure, he'll do it concisely. Let's do it.
Oh.
Wrap it up, Dave.
We usually go around the table and get everybody's closing thought and parting shot, but I think that we tend to also talk a little bit long. So if you would like to take us home.
All right, I'll wing it. I'll do a CyberWire style close for the Beers with Talos thing. And that's
actually before you do that. So
where's he at?
I'll give myself one.
All right.
Before we do this, if anybody isn't aware, this podcast is actually going to be available on both channels.
Yep.
So you will now hear Dave closing a Beers with Talos podcast that'll actually be on both channels anyway.
We'll put it on the CyberWire feed as well. Yep. All right, and that is the Beers with Talos podcast. Thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks for all of our sponsors. That's Cisco. And thank all of you for coming. We hope you all have a great time at Black Hat. We'll see you next time. Take care.
That was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Make sure you grab the